Stand by, doctor.
Yeah, okay. No way.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can. I hear other people too. Do you know how to mute everybody if you need to?
Yes, I will. Okay, can you hear me? Awesome. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. You are joining the Blue Door Neighborhood Center of Blue Cross Blue Shield, Illinois, and Dr. Obari and friends for a very important discussion on mental strategies that are needed in order to improve nutrition and physical health. First, I want to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to the Blue Door Neighborhood Center. If you all have never been introduced to us, we are the first community-based center owned by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Illinois. We are actually passionate about positively impacting community health. My name is Akia Wynn, and I am a health educator here at the Blue Door Neighborhood Center. We currently have 3 physical centers located in Chicago's historic Pullman community, Morgan Park, and most recently, the South Lawndale community. But we'll get to all of those details a little bit later. We did want to let you all know that while our physical doors are closed, our virtual doors are still open. As you can see, we are still providing relevant community services and resources on the virtual platform. I want to take time out to acknowledge all of my colleagues here on the call tonight. We do have our director of the Blue Door Neighborhood Centers, LaRon Taylor, our manager of health education, Keisha Hammond, and my fellow health educator colleagues, Paige Hammond, Nakaya Rapier, and Ashley Lewis, and any other Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois colleagues that may be joining us tonight. Just a little bit of virtual housekeeping. This meeting will be recorded. We will also be allowing everyone to change your view, so feel free to change it to single, overlay, or grid view. All lines will be muted during this discussion, and we also want you all to get familiar with the chat. So please locate the chat icon and go ahead and test it out and introduce yourself to us and let us know where you're logging in from. We'd love to hear that. So without any further ado, I would like to bring up Dr. Obari Cartman, as he is the facilitator and who will be leading tonight's discussion. Dr. Obari, it's all yours.
Thank you, Akia, for the introduction. Thank you all, Blue Door, for the platform. And really, as an organization, I really appreciate y'all being serious about the mission. Like, it's not something that's just on paper for y'all. I've been to the center. We've been working for almost a year now. And like the consistent, opportunities y'all create and allow for healing and do it in ways that are really relevant. The
Dr. Obari, we can't hear you anymore. Stand by, everyone. Dr. Obari will be joining us via his phone. We thank you all for your patience. All right. I see we have Chicago is in the house. Someone from Jamaica. Awesome. Thank you all for joining. Who else? Chicago's Lakeview neighborhood, Colorado. Thank you all for joining us. We're so happy to have everyone. I see Atlanta, ATL is joining us as well. Thank you so much. We're so excited to have such a variety of people all over the country joining us for this discussion. In such a time as this, it's a great time to have this discussion. Thank you from the Bronzeville community for joining us. We have Catholic Charities joining us. Thank you all.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. There we go. I think we got flagged. We were talking about Judas and the Messiah, and the FBI tuned in and took my audio. But we flexible people, we adjust. Where was I? Thank y'all for having us, Blue Door. Thank y'all for doing the work and for allowing us to have bold, relevant conversations that are impactful people. And despite opening centers that we can't come into, y'all found a way to make a way. So I appreciate that. And I am really excited about this conversation tonight. Sometimes I do things that are professional where I get to share and, express the things that I've been reflecting on. But tonight, this is very personal for me because I need to eat better. And I have children that I am worried about the habits that we're creating in our house that are not healthy for us as a family. And the thing that we know, all of us know, is that this process of holistic health and having to be a lifestyle and not be a fad or not be a response to a tragedy is something that takes time, but also takes resources and perspectives. And I'm really excited about the panel we brought together. These are some of my favorite people with this subject. I know people that do health stuff, but sometimes you can do it in a way that's very preachy, and it pushes people away if you do it the wrong way. So I want the folks that are patient and compassionate and have had their own journeys, and they can help all of us walk through to get to a place where we can just be healthier. We can be more well and connect these dots between the emotional health, spiritual health, physical health, and the societal sort of barriers to all of it. And so these are the folks that I think are best suited that I know of in the country really to help us with this conversation. So I'm excited about that. I got my notepad right here, taking notes myself. The questions that I asked I'm not just moderating to generate discussions. These are real questions that I have for my life. And so I'm glad we get to have that kind of conversation here tonight. And we very deliberately have this set up so that it's like we all in this community forum together. We didn't want this to be webinar style where only the panelists could speak and y'all could just chat. We want y'all to be able to chime in, to ask your questions directly. I'm gonna get us started and frame the conversations and just introduce the folks. I got a couple questions we can start with, but if y'all have your own questions, there'll be time at the end for us to just have an open dialogue and figure this out, because there are no easy answers to some of this, and there are evolving dynamics that make some of this stuff hard. The reason we decided to put this forum together from the Black psychologist perspective is that we were having conversations about the vaccine and wanted to create a space that guide people towards making that decision. And we decided that we didn't want to even pick a side on that we get the resistance, we get people's reservations. We understand that there's a lot of distrust in the system and those kind of things. But our position is, whether you decide to take the vaccine or not, that we all need to be more considerate about our immune health, that we need to strengthen our immune systems, period. Vaccine, no vaccine. If COVID has taught us nothing else, that we have particular vulnerabilities that are structural and also cultural that make us more susceptible to consequences for whatever the new pandemic is going to be, whatever new strain comes out, that we have to protect ourselves and that we need food and medicine and holistic health practices and movement, all these things embedded in our culture to do so. And it's hard to do when we also struggling more. We also unemployed more. We also prone to addiction. We also are under attack, right? And so these comfort foods that get us through the day, when we stressed out and we go to ice cream, we go to donuts, we go to cookies, if that's the only moment that you get a break and a moment of peace, and that is the thing that also contributes to causing more harm down the line, that's when I feel like we need to figure this out. We got to talk about it, figure out ways to break up the emotional eating cycles. One of the questions I have is whether or not we need to think about food like we think about addiction and have similar processes of recovery from it. But these are all things that are not outside of my area of expertise. And so I'm going to quickly get to our panelists so they can share who they are and what they do. And I changed my opening question. I didn't even tell him. I changed it based on a conversation me and Sadiq had early on his radio show. What I wanted to do first, I thought I needed to establish, because I know who they are, and I trust their expertise because I've been following them and we work together. But I wanted to start this conversation asking them to share about their work so that they could establish, trust in the audience, right? So you can know why you should listen to who they are and what it means to have a relative expertise in this kind of a field. But after talking to Sadiq, what I realized was that your credentials, your work, your programs, and we can get to that, but what's more important to me is that you are people who have had your own personal journeys with health and wellness. And that the point Sadiq was making on the radio show is that, like, we don't necessarily need people to go right to where he is right now. We need people to figure out how he got from point A through to point B and the lessons learned along the way. And that is the expertise that we can lean on. That, like, wherever you are now, you didn't come there overnight. And that you might be talking to a lot of people that are at where you used to be, and we need you to help us get to where you are now, right? So that's my opening question. I want you to introduce yourselves by sharing your health and wellness journey. What were the things the practices that you inherited from your house? What was what your diet like? Your routines like? When did you realize you needed to change them? And how did it become a part of your lifestyle? What were the barriers to that? Can you share your health and wellness story, and then end up now? Share, where you are now, what your work is, what you're most excited about around the work that you're doing, and that'd be a way to humanize the process, but also let us know that there's a journey involved in this, and that we can learn from that, that story, the A to B story, the before and after story, because a lot of us, there's no telling where people are in terms of, like, the stages of this. Like, if there's no light switch, there's no on and off. Like, we need to gradually get to a place where we're doing better, and it's a step-by-step process. So if y'all can do that, since I said his name already, I'm gonna ask Brother Sadiq to start, just to share his journey of health and wellness, nutrition, how you got to where you are, where you came from, and what are some of the lessons you learned along the way.
All right. Thank you very much. Doc, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. So my name is Sadiq Colquitt, born and raised in Chicago. And so I won't take all night. I'll try to make the journey as painless for you as possible. But it was, man, so let me here. I started being 28, 284 pounds and not being able to walk up 2 flights of stairs without getting winded. Went to the doctor, and the doctor ironically didn't tell me to lose weight. That was an obvious thing. The doctor looked at me and she said, Mr. Colquitt, I'm just going to recommend this high blood pressure medication for you, and you're probably going to have to take it the rest of your life. At 28 and a half, 29 years old, the rest of my life sounded like an awfully long time to be taking medication. So I walked to the doctor's office, and I literally decided not to do that, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So I actually met a few brothers. They took me to lunch. Yo, check out no milk and no dairy. lunch at didn't even know this whole the corn sandwich fried chicken is, Taurus's subs, the Polish. I'm trying to stay away from. I can tell you, straight White Castle 79. Like I could go down the list, but I didn't know where this one was. Went there, experienced food. My sister, my mom get burned, back get burned, and trying to max with no meat. I did try of the food. Got to a point where I decided that I was going to live. Days. Beats the things and so that was my confirmation to keep on the journey. You know, we talked about this on the show. I was confirmed. I went to Christmas was a holiday season, and I prepared her mac and cheese 3 decades almost, and I was she cried, and we had an emotional family, what I would call a traumatic family moment. Different. Her food was how we relate. So, you know, it's what I call food trauma. And I'm from that learning more, talking about plant-based, traveling to Africa, back and forth, here in Chicago, across the United States, getting into a group, and then that led to me manufacturing facility in the state of America. Did move to work to the concept of African. I do. We work through 30 days. We work clothing because African American people of African descent of color, we like to look good and feel good. So we do plant-based African gear to help you help food. And we also work in media or entertainment. We have our show that you were on earlier today. So that's so I studied in one of the top schools in the country in conjunction with Cornell University. And the doctor who authored the China study, which is the largest study on its effects. It's all to say that I've really put everything into people understand. The philosophy we use is we start where you are. People on your journey, they want to suck and thing, and that's how everybody starts. I don't think that's how most people start. I started by aspects of getting your health to another level. That hopefully is something that you can stick with and move with. I am in my 21st year of the based journey. I am healthier now at 50 than I was at 29. My journey. Thank you.
I love it. Perfect. Your sound was choppy for me. Can everybody hear him fine? Y'all can hear him fine, or it was choppy?
It was choppy.
It was choppy.
Okay. I heard most of it. If there's something you can alter before you come back again, I don't know if there's something you can do on your end.
How does it sound now? Am I still choppy? How does it sound now? Am I choppy?
A little bit to me.
Okay, I'll work on it. Go ahead, I'll work on it.
Okay.
I'll work on it.
I want to come back to something you said in your story, though. This will be on the table for later, but this idea of the transmission of the emotional connection to food, from mother to son, from parent to children. It's a lot of pressure to have your mother crying in front of a mac and cheese pan, right? And you know, as African people, it's a very strong pull to honor to revere your ancestors, to revere your elders, to honor your mother, right? I do a lot of work with boys, and you know, they can talk all this stuff about all these other women, but you say something about their mama, right? There's something embedded in like the DNA of Black people where you have to honor your mother first and foremost. And a lot of times, in a lot of the things that we pass down, that we've inherited survival adaptations that part of what it means to heal, to honor your mother, doesn't always mean mimic our mothers, our parents, right? Part of what it means also is to expand and evolve and push back, challenge, right? Do it in a way that's loving and patient and all that. But I think one of the ways we get stuck is that idea that your mama said do it, like eat every drop on that plate, or you disrespectful in your house, right? So some of that I don't know how to break that up while still holding on to this honor your mother aspect that I think is really instructive for us. By teasing apart what are the things that our mothers passed down, our fathers passed down, that were survival based, not healthy. You know, what does it mean to get beyond just making it, right? I want to come back to that. I got some, we got some powerful people on the call. We can hash some of that stuff out. Dr. Tammy Matthews, would you like to go next? Dr. Tammy Matthews, I really, really wanted on this, but she was like, I'm flying to Florida and I've got to wait. I don't know if I'm going to make it. And I said, I'm going to risk this. I'm going to risk you getting off your plane, getting your bags, getting through Florida traffic in a new city and making it here on time. So I'm so glad that you are. I don't know where you're at right now, but you're here, which is the beauty of the virtual space. So please introduce yourself. Tell us about your journey, and welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Cartman. I appreciate being a part of this with such a powerful panel of people. I wouldn't have missed this for the world. Do I sound clear right now? Okay, awesome. So thank you for the opportunity. I was listening to Mr. Sadiq, and our stories are very similar. Pretty much the same thing. I was just a little bit older. I was right around 30, going through a divorce, and I had a teenage daughter. So, there was a lot of emotional things that was happening with me. And I was gaining weight in my 30s, and I was getting more sick. I had dysmenorrhea, I had fibroids, I had pain, I had hypertension. And then eventually by the age of 39, my doctor said, look, I'm getting ready to put you on cholesterol medication. I was in the pharmaceutical sales industry for 11 years. And I studied the body, the digestive system. My degree is biology, pre-medicine. So I knew a lot about the naturopathic world. I knew nothing about the naturopathic world until I met a sister who had lupus. And I didn't know she had lupus. I just saw that she ate differently. I asked her because she looked healthy. She was trim. I said, why do you eat, all this stuff? I call it all these vegetables, and she told me her story. And so as a result, I was then connected to Dr. Derek Williams, who is a naturopath. And I went and studied under Dr. Laila Africa because I wanted to learn how to heal myself. I had tried everything. I had gone to every doctor. I had gone to every weight loss clinic. I had done everything that I knew possibly to do in order to reverse my condition. Well, at the age of 39, after having heart palpitations and I was, sleeping, starting to not have any type of feeling in my left arm and just signs of heart attack or stroke, I then made a decision that I needed to go deeper into what my soul was telling me, because what I was doing was not working. I was very actively involved in the church. I was doing well. I was a trainer on my job. So from on paper, I looked successful. I had money, I had all of that. I looked successful. But when I went home at night, I was unhappy. I was miserable. My relationships were poor, and I was not happy with myself. So I then, what I like to say from a spiritual perspective was that I just surrendered to God and the universe and said, I need help. I don't know what else to do. And so as a result of that, I went on what I like to call and coin a holistic detox, where I literally withdrew from the world and saying no television, no radio. I bought books. I listened to, tapes. I had a coach who was a vegan, and I literally had my hand held as I went through a 25-day all juice detox, because my intention was to relearn how to eat. My thought process, and this was 11 years ago, was that if my brain, my body as a child in my mother's womb could develop, my brain stem, my spinal cord, all my major organs, all of my tissues and cells could be formed on a liquid diet, then I need to go back to the beginning and I need to relearn based on what my soul was telling me versus what I was conditioned and taught how to eat for my particular body. So went on a holistic detox. I reversed all of my conditions. I didn't even know that you could disintegrate fibroids at that time, but that was one of the benefits, along with my blood pressure became normal. I was 5'2". I was 245 pounds. I lost 60 pounds like the first 9 months just by coming off of animal products. When I found out that that was the reason that I had all the conditions that I had, then I actually had to leave the pharmaceutical industry and start the business Restored by Tammy to begin to teach our community in Chicago. So I started the business in Chicago, teaching our community how to holistically detox and also to understand the mind, body, spirit connection, to understand emotional addictive factors that drive us to certain snack foods. And so because everyone, and because, social media helped, they saw me transform. They saw me walk away from what I like to call the plantation and begin to really step out on faith and begin to live from my soul plan instead of from what I was conditioned to believe I needed to do. And so I reversed everything. I've probably helped now, it's probably close to 500 people. 3 years ago, I relocated to Atlanta. And again, that had to do with my health and wellness, because I realized that I was experiencing seasonal depression during the month of February, which I got going on in Chicago. I can't do that no more. I relocated to Atlanta, and I'm continuing to, on my journey to self-healing. I turn 51 next month. And what I do is I coach. I'm also a life coach. So I coach people really from a cellular emotional level, I like to say, and holding their hand in order to be able to help change the mindsets, in order for them to get a better understanding of why they are where they are. And then they have the choice to make the decision to change. It's up to them. And then in regards, you talked about with family, I brought my entire family through the detox program in order for them to be able to unlearn and then relearn the truth, understanding our history. I went to Ghana 3 years ago. I went through the slave castles. I got into the culture. I lived in the community. I did some community service work prior to my transition to Atlanta, visit the African American Museum so that I can teach our community the truth, so then we can begin to restore ourselves and not wait on someone on the outside to bring us restoration. But the food piece is so important. But without the information and the knowledge in how to manage emotions, stress, those everyday factors, no matter how good your intentions are, without that, it's challenging to actually have a permanent lifestyle change. And that's the piece that I support at this time.
Wonderful. I love it. Thank you for being here. We're going to try to get some specific strategies from you around the life coaching idea. Like, what are the tips? Are there tricks? Are there things? Because it's not about information to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
People still smoke cigarettes. You know it's not information, right? People put it in their mouth, knowing full well it is not good for them, and do it anyway. So that emotional part is super important for us. So we can come back to you on that. The other thing that occurs to me as I hear both of y'all stories around like getting to a breaking point where a doctor is like, this is it or else, is the position that a lot of us are in that have children to prevent that, right? So the part of changing is critical. Like, you get to a point where you got to have information, the motivation to change. But what if we can create children that don't need to change, that can just continue to do what we instilled in them? And it's hard to do. Like, I don't know everybody. I know some of y'all got kids, but like, they eat what they want to eat, and sometimes it'd be like, do I just let them starve, or do I just give them one option and that be the thing? But I don't know. It's harder to do than it is to talk about. But if y'all have to have best practices, if y'all have learned some things around, things to do in the house, we would love to get some of those specific strategies so that our children are not bumped up into a place where they got to revolutionize their world because they're just going through the motions that we've instilled in them in our house.
Yeah.
So we can come back to that too.
Absolutely.
Zarakia.
Yes, sir. I had to sit up, get my mute button. First of all, I was really just so me and Brother Sadiq go back a ways. Matter of fact, I might have been in the restaurant that day you came in, if I ain't mistaken. But I really appreciated hearing you and Dr. Matthews' story. My story is a little different. It wasn't like a health breaking point. As I look back at it, it was a matter of diet has always been a part of my kind of cultural evolution. So I was a senior in high school, pretty militant. I still am, but I was hardcore militant without like no structure to it. You know how high schoolers are. And in that, I thought I was going to be in the Nation of Islam, so I stopped eating pork. Then I ran into I somehow became friends with a guy who was a Seventh-day Adventist. Not that that's the issue, but he was like a real cartoon type of type. We like in high school in Morgan Park, and he wearing like full suit jackets with like the elbow patches. That type of guy. It didn't necessarily match my flow. I'm like, but somehow we became friends. And in that, as I was searching for points of growth, he was like, hey, why don't you should come? He's trying to get me to Seventh-day Adventism thing. And of course, they're vegetarian. So he was like, hey, you should come down to Soul Veg with me. I'm like, I don't know about that. He's like, I'm treating. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll be there. I'll meet you there. And so, in that conversation, went there, ate, loved it, met the brothers, and I saw, a difference in them. I saw kind of a connectivity. And then they were just so, I felt like Steve said, I didn't know soul vegetarian existed. I didn't know Black people ate vegetables, because I wasn't necessarily raised like that. I used to come home right from school and I had like boxes of like frozen shrimp, and that was like it. My mother to this day it's not much about vegetables, love as I do, but she drinks almond milk now, so I think I'm gonna take credit for that, my son and I. But but nevertheless, as I return back to the story, so I really became enamored of soul vegetarian, and that was pretty much the day I became vegetarian. I think I spent a few days kind of like accidentally driving past Kurt's on 83rd to accidentally like I'm over here, so I might as well stop in here this one last time. So I did that maybe for a few days, and then I got over that, and so that's been 24 years. I've been vegan. So I went from that and I ended up volunteering in Soul Veg as I went to Howard University because I was graduating. Then parlayed that into going to living in the community that of course spawned Soul Vegetarian, which is the African Hebrew Israelite community, which is entirely vegan. So again, it was just diet was just kind of step by step a part of my own enlightenment and growth. And so I think when I got to the point to be a father and more of an activist in the community, so I tried to figure out ways to share that with others because I realized that diet is an intrinsic part of any culture. Just human life. I mean, that's pretty much the most basic of human activities is to eat. And then when you understand how that works biologically from a health perspective, obviously the cultural perspective, it's where we meet, it's where we interact. And so I think it's just a great tool to inspire change and to make change applicable. So, I worked in climate change activism, understanding the dietary aspects of that. I was actually a delegate at the UN Climate Change Conference in 2011. Yeah. Then start working, as you know, Dr. Cartman, kind of back in the streets in Chicago, working with disaffected youth and developed Peace Diet program, which was designed to use nutrition to affect the parts of the brain that are affected by trauma. And so in that, work with groups like the Greater Auburn Gresham Development Corporation to do summer programming, creating snack supplements to, like I said, affect those parts of because frankly, we're all traumatized. We're Black in America, so trauma that's that, and then you add on the various layers that may come in your personal experiences. Certainly, we know how our communities are constructed. And so, again, understanding how diet is an intrinsic part of our lives, it gives us an opportunity to enact collective change, and really a special opportunity for social reengineering, if you will. So, from that, I guess right now, we with COVID created an opportunity because we were doing some trauma-based work with Blacks Together, which is a very powerful grassroots organization over there in West Humboldt Park. But we had worked with CPS to institute, like I said, this neuronutritional program into the schools, had already done these trauma studies, so we understood what the data was. Just to give you a quick picture into it, if you understand what ACEs is the Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey. It's pretty much the mainstream, well-accepted standard for identifying trauma on a scale of 1 to 10. And what they're able to do is identify these childhood traumas will project forward into adult issues. And they can calculate it. If you have, 4 or more traumas, you're 1,000 times more likely to have depression or, however much more likely to have suicide. What your income will be, all these various things, again, related to trauma. But the kids we were working with had an average score of 4.2, which is devastating, frankly, and some of those numbers are low because some of those questions are difficult to answer. We were dealing with young people, but nevertheless, so I constructed a supplement that incorporates omega-3 supplementation, plant-based and blue algae, micronutrition, nootropics, anti-inflammation, and all these various elements, again, to support those parts of the brain. And then COVID hit. So we were a week away from instituting that. We had to pause on it. But then, as I think as culture does, it created an opportunity to adapt. So since we were out of the schools and we only had the streets to work with, I had to modify that into a beverage so it could be more useful for mass consumption. Again, that opportunity to use diet on a mass scale. I mean, because frankly, that's what they're doing to us, right? I mean, our enemies have mastered using food as a weapon. I think we should do the same. As the Chairman Fred says, as we was just talking about Judas and the Black Messiah, we got to fight fire with water. We have to understand what our tools are to use against it. But anyway, yeah, so we turned it into a drink that the streets call Mojo Juice. I did not come up with that name, but they said it enough times. And it was really better than my very technical four-word acronym. So I was like, yeah, okay. No, that's neural nutrition. No, that's Mojo Juice, Joe. All right, cool. That's whatever you say, boss. Just take some, but again, so what we enhanced it with immune supportive additives, elderberry, hibiscus, vitamin C, vitamin D, and all these various aspects. And now we are in negotiations with UIC to back the study. We have parents and families ready. We'll be supplementing them on a weekly basis and being able to track the biomarkers for stress. And again, all of this to kind of bring it home and an understanding for me, as an extension of my own growth, how impactful diet can be to one's development and evolution, intellectual, enlightenment, from an emotional perspective, from a physical perspective. I've never had any I was never, like Sadiq said, nowhere near 400 pounds. As a matter of fact, my challenge was getting up. But certainly I had as many of us had a childhood that had its challenges. And then I was able to come to learn for my own self how to use diet to heal those wounds, because some traumas can't be, as Dr. Cartman would tell you, you can't just talk out. And if we know those wounds go deep, how do we use these other tools to heal those wounds and stop holding ourselves back, And really, in a personal sense, as I close in this whole regard, my son reminded me, in his own clumsy way, how important diet is. Because at that time, my son went to Freedom Home Academy. Shout out to Marcus Klein, and he was there since like first grade, I think, and because I wanted a vegan, school for him. And so eventually I ended up doing their food program. We brought the Peace Diet to them, so they had nutritional supplementation every day. Breakfast, lunch, and all that. So, my son had that, his classmates had that. But anyway, he was at a pool party with his classmates, running on the side of the pool, beyond the sign saying, "Don't do that." So, of course, what happens? He runs, slips, bam, bangs his head on the floor, gets upstairs because he's trying to be cool. He was scared to get in trouble, so he tightened it up until he starts to seizure and throw up. So I get called to the hospital because I'm not there. And my son is being surrounded by like a whirling dervish of doctors, and they're pretty much discussing how bad will the brain bleed be. It wasn't that it wasn't going to be there. How bad will it be? You know what I mean? And so, but long story short, he wakes up with no trauma, no major trauma, no bleeds, maybe about 6 to 8 hours later. And mind you, they had to induce coma, try to get his brain to the inflammation down or what have you. And so the doctors are trying to figure out, they keep coming in and out the room when he wakes up. Do you know what day it is? You know what? He's like, yeah. And all the while in the night, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what to do. Because I asked the doctor, like, so what should I be, prepared for? And she was like, she said, crushed foods. Yeah, that's what she told me. Like soft foods is what you'd be prepared for, like mashed potatoes out of a straw type situations. I'm like, okay. But I'm like, nah, because I know there's a power in what we've already been doing. So it turns out, as the doctors are trying to figure it out, we had learned that the exact type of supplementation that he had been doing with his classmates, and he had been living for years anyway, was exactly what the Department of Defense and the U.S. Army uses for CTE, or traumatic brain injuries at war. They suggest omega-3 supplementation, micronutrition, and anti-inflammation. So it was like a confirmation that even in the most physically traumatic sense, regardless of my own personal psychological trauma, you know what I mean? And it actually saved my son's life. You know what I mean? So, and I remind him all the time as he was about to turn 18 and he wanted to be slipping and slapping with his food. I was like, hey, boss, I saved your life with this diet, so go eat these greens and shut your mouth. But anyway, but yeah, so it became personal to me. And I think as our liberation is something that's personal to me as well, how can I use some, like Dr. Cartman said, real tools to affect real change? And so, it helped change me. So I figured it could do the same for others. Yeah.
So appreciate that testimony.
Yeah, of
I
course.
I met your son. It had to be like 5, 6 years ago, a while ago. He was maybe 8, 9, 10, maybe. And I remember it was something you weren't even in the room. And I offered him a piece of candy. It was like a wrapped up piece of candy. He looked at me like I was crazy. He was like, nah, like I don't eat that shit. Like this is processed sugar. And that's when I knew that was a proof of concept that I needed. You ain't even got to be in the room, but that boy knew better than to consume this garbage that I was trying to give him, and he protected himself already. And I've always been
Yeah,
impressed by your work as evidence by what you were able to instill in your boy, right?
I appreciate that.
Um,
He's a good
the
dude.
other thing that we need from you though is like I'm at the Detroit right now. I'm here right now, actually doing a Zoom call, and I have a group of young men, they Southside boys, and they come into a movement program. And so Veg is popped up here right now while they're
Right.
renovating in their place. So every week I try to get them to come over there, try some of the food, try some of the greens, try some of whatever it is. But something about their taste has changed. They're not having the experience that used to be shared, where you went there, you tried it, it was delicious, and then that's what you did from there on out. They're so used to high salt content, sugar content, that they don't even enjoy the taste of things that I know are delicious because I'm eating them.
Right.
So there's I don't know if that's changed. I don't know if that's something that you've worked around. I know you've done programs where you get like flaming hot supplements, where you recreate flaming hot and make it like healthy, right? Or food that are comfort food to us. But that part where you gotta trick people into getting medicine is something that I think that we need to spend more time with.
Well, that's real, Dr. Carmen. That's real. I mean, like you said, with the PSI program, the whole point of it was, I was sitting outside of a school over on like 79th and Vincennes trying to figure out, I had come up with this whole meal plan. It was like, no, you can't do that. I was like, okay. Then I saw a kid go get a bag of Flaming Hots and a green freeze pop. And I said, that's it right there. How do I make that medicinal? And that was pretty much it, I mean, Mojo juice tastes like Kool-Aid. They don't know.
Yeah. So we'll come back to that. So Dr. Audrey Tanksley is here. She is our last panelist. What we're doing here is sharing our health and wellness stories. Zaraki, can you unmute for me? I think there's echo. Sharing our health and wellness stories, how we got from point A to point B, what some of the challenges and lessons learned along the way. To not leave people with the sense that like tomorrow you have to revolutionize your diet. I do have a question. I think most of y'all are plant-based from what I hear. I don't know if you are, but is it possible to eat meat? Is there a healthy version of meat, or are y'all completely all plants? Is there no way to do it? Because you wrestling beef out of people's mouths these days. Like it's really hard to get meat out of people's faces. I don't know if there's a way around that, if there's some alternative, there's lean meats, or if we really should just no dairy, like if there's no compromise to some of that. That's another question I have. We can come back to that, but I keep getting distracted. Dr. Tanksley, can you introduce yourself, share your health and wellness journey, and some of the work that you're most excited about doing right now? And welcome, thanks.
And can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, perfect. And then maybe I'll try to tackle just a tad bit, or you could say that for the panel, whichever. But I'd love to try to hit that question that you just asked. So thank you. I'm sorry for my tardiness. My name is Dr. Audrey Tanksley. I'm an internal medicine physician by Western training. I'm also an integrative medicine physician, which was an additional couple years of training that I did after medical school. I'm going to go all the way back. I'm so happy to be last. I didn't get to hear Brother Sadiq, which breaks my heart because I know he has a really, really good story. But I'm glad that I was able to hear Dr. Matthews, and I don't want to mispronounce Z's name, but Brother Z as well, because I think there's so many overlaps in a lot of our stories, and kind of a lot of most people who have come to a place of health and wellness through some form of a journey. So I myself am from the South Side of Chicago, born and raised in a community called Fernwood, but a lot of people don't know it. So it's like the gallbladder of Roseland. So I just always tell people I'm from the Wild Wild Hundreds, and they know what I'm talking about, and then I'm okay. So so that's where I'm from, born and raised, you know, city girl. And I grew up probably like a lot of people on here with my grandparents who were from the South, and they had migrated in the Great Migration. And so my grandfather, who was a farmer back in Tennessee, brought those skills with him to Chicago. And so he always had a garden, and I called it like a little mini farm because it took up a quarter of our backyard. And he always had that from the time that I was a little girl growing up. And so for me, the attraction to whole foods or to eating natural vegetables and things that came from the ground was a little easier to adapt because I had saw him grow. I planted them. I did those things with him on a yearly basis. So I always had that love. I also had a grandmother who, even though she went to the doctor, she didn't do what they said. She often would be like, oh, okay, thank you for that recommendation. Go home and do some natural remedy that, you know, that she either knew from her grandparents or either she had a million books about home remedies. And so, you know, this was a woman who was drinking noni juice like way back before it was a popular thing. And so I had that thought of medicine growing up as well, too. Now, I grew up, like I said, in the hundreds. I was not very well off. And so I grew up in poverty, like Brother Z was saying, and I had my own traumatic story as well, too. I'm glad you mentioned the ACEs, and I hope we get into that a little bit more because that's actually a lot of what I do. So that being said, I grew up going to, you know, the neighborhood community clinic. You know, with my medical card, I got the same treatment everybody else got. And I never really got nutritional advice or got any kind of advice about ways to do things outside of a pharmaceutical standpoint. So that was my perception of what medicine was, although my perception of what I would say healing was what I was seeing at home with my grandparents. So I went to medical school. Fast forward, I'm fast forward through all the life and say, okay, I went to medical school. And so I went to med school, finished the 4 years, and actually came back to Chicago and started practicing or started doing my residency. And as I was doing that, I realized many of the problems or many of the disparities I was seeing and the poor outcomes that I was seeing in my patients, much of it didn't have anything to do with them not taking their pharmaceutical prescription that I had given them. Most of it had to do with other choices that they were making in their lives around diets or exercise or lack thereof, and other things that help those types of things to actually work. And yet we weren't, and I wasn't either, really giving them that advice because I hadn't been trained on how to give them that advice or what advice to really give them. So I finished my residency. I started doing my fellowship. And I was actually over at the University of Chicago, which had a really good nutrition program at the time. And I was doing a fellowship actually in medical education. So I was doing some research around something totally different, professionalism and the doctor-patient relationship. But I ended up meeting a colleague through that research who was actually in pediatric palliative care. And I would always tell her, like, you have got a heart of gold to be able to do, you know, that on a daily basis. And she started talking to me about the reason she did it and the way that she incorporated non-Western medicine in it. So as these babies were and little kids were suffering from so much pain and all these things, she was able to really help a lot of their inflammatory conditions and things with their diet. You can still hear me? Okay, thank you. And so she was, you know, kind of healing a lot of the things through their diet, as well as through some other non-traditional methods like acupuncture and massage and different things like that. So I, of course, became intrigued because that reminded me of what my grandmother would do and those kind of things. So started to dig a bit deeper into it and decided to go and actually pursue fellowship training in it. So that's where I actually went to University of Arizona to do integrative medicine training. I thought about doing more of a adjunct, not naturopath, because I didn't want to go back to school fully, but just kind of an adjunct that they had through, through medicine to learn more about nutrition and those kind of things. But that I didn't want to do that because I didn't feel like it encompassed everything. For me, and just so that, many other folks out here, in case you're not familiar with integrative medicine is really a blend of the best of Eastern medicine and the best of, and I hate to even say Eastern, but the best of Western medicine and the best of non-Western medicine. And it looks at what science is there, what data has been produced, and where we can use these modalities in a way that that can be scientifically backed up. Now, there are a lot of things that we do that cannot be scientifically backed up because we know that, we have set a standard of the gold standard being a randomized, controlled, double-blinded study, and that's not always possible to do in some of this type of research. And so what we are able to do in integrative medicine, though, is to use the best of what is available. And non-Western medicine typically has over 3,000 years worth of data. It's just whether or not you're willing to look at it and actually interpret what it says. So I wanted to do this, went to school, went back to do it, got my fellowship training, and then came back and actually was like, okay, so I'm going to start doing this. At this time, it was probably about maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I'm rounding in the hospital with now I have all this knowledge. And this is where I think somebody had brought up Chairman Fred, and I'm glad you did, because I had all this theory, right? I had more degrees and everything than a temperature gauge. I had all of this stuff, but wasn't living it practically. So at that point, I was about maybe 50 pounds overweight. I was rounding. You guys know what rounding is. It's when you see the doctors in the hospital and it's like the main doctor and they got like 5 people following behind them and they all go into different rooms. And so I was the attending physician. I was the main doctor, and I had all my little med students and all my residents and stuff behind me. And I'm like, the elevator was taking a long time. So I'm like, we going up the stairs. Come on, we hitting these stairs. So we get to the like 2 flights of stairs up. That was it, 2 flights. And I was out of breath. I was like, totally like, oh my goodness. And my med student was like, you okay, Dr. Tainsley? I'm like, give me a minute. And more than the embarrassment that had on me, it was the realization that you got all this theory, all this knowledge, and you're not even putting it into practice. How can you sit in a room with someone and tell them you need to lose weight, you should do this and this, and you're not even doing it? So I took it as a personal challenge for myself, that I was going to live what I was teaching. And so at that point, I went on, and as Dr. Matthews had mentioned earlier, it was a space that I was in that was just all disconnected. And that's what I teach people a lot, is that, spiritually, mentally, physically, those things all need to be in sync for you to be at your most optimal health. And so I went on, I started it off actually with a 40-day spiritual fast, because for me, I needed to really get myself back into alignment with my creator. And so I started with a 40-day spiritual fast, and then kind of moved into more of what I guess I would call a weight loss journey, and overall mind transformation and lifestyle transformation. And so, fast forward by the end of that. So you asked the question, are we all vegan or all plant-based and those kind of things? And I will say, I am not vegan. I would probably fit more, I guess I would fit more into a pescatarian type of lifestyle, because I do still eat some seafood, because I love crab legs. So I do still eat seafood, but I do eat mostly a plant-based diet. But there are times that I will, throw some shrimp in something. So now my family, on the other hand, is not, right? My family still eats what I call a plant-forward diet, because my husband still eats meat and my kids enjoy meat as well too. But we have moved from meat being their main dish to meat being their side dish. And so there's always more veggies and on their plate than there is meat. And so so I say that, and I say plant forward just because I think even for a lot of my patients that are trying to transition into this lifestyle, that transition of that just cut it all out. Sometimes it's really challenging and really difficult for someone who's been eating this way for their entire life. And so I look at it and I always try to teach them about transitions and phases. And maybe the first phase is stop drinking pop, or stop drinking sugary beverages, or things that are contributing to maybe your diabetes or those kind of things. And then as we move and get comfortable with those things, we move into others. Everything I do is about goal setting. I think even for my own success in maintaining the weight loss, because that's the other thing I try to tell people about a lot as well too, is you don't want to go, people all the time are like, oh, well, Dr. Stacey, can I just do a Atkins diet, or can I just do keto, or can I just do this? And I asked them, is it sustainable? Are you going to eat like that for the rest of your life? If it's not something you're going to do for the rest of your life, you haven't transformed, right? You're just trending for a minute. And so if you want something to be sustainable and to actually help you overall, and like Z was saying, decrease the trauma and all of those ill effects that have created this dis-ease in our bodies, then you truly do have to begin to look at it in a different way and change those things in your life that are sustainable to change. And so I'm going to be quiet because I have a whole lot of other stuff I can do. Oh, you asked me, what am I most passionate about? I'm passionate about people. I am so passionate about people and education. And so right now I'm working on a probably way too many projects, but one that's very, very near and dear to my heart is a community wellness center that we're actually opening in the Woodlawn area. It's called the Salam Community Wellness Center, and it's going to be on 67th Street. And it's actually this concept in practice. And for myself, after finishing everything and, coming back, I've always practiced on the South, well, not only on the South Side, very briefly on the North Side, but for the most part, I've always practiced on the South Side of Chicago because I am from the South Side. This is what I love. I had a little brief time on the West Side too, but for the most part, this is what I do. So I wanted to see the same types of resources and access to holistic health that I see in other areas. I wanted to see that here as well. So for example, like if you go, everybody knows if you go on the North Side, and you've got really great insurance, you're going to find everybody's acupuncture clinic. You're going to be able to get a medical massage. You're going to find a medical spa. You're going to find all of these things that have these very boutique-y feels to them, but actually play a huge role in your overall health outside of medications, right? On the West Side, even you've got things like Lawndale Christian. They have, a health, like a fitness facility. They have healthy restaurants. And so they're promoting this image. Whether people are using it or not is another story, but they're promoting the image. And we don't have that on the South Side. So the project I'm most passionate about right now is getting that Health and Wellness Center open, because I want to, I'm also boarded in addiction medicine. And so, as I mentioned, we all got a story, right? And so I'm also boarded in addiction medicine because that's very dear to my heart. And there's a lot that you can do with acupuncture in the ear for trauma, for weight loss, for substance use, and various different things that are just, not even that invasive, that can be used that we're not utilizing a lot. And so I want to, just make sure that those options are available to all patients, no matter if you have a medical card or, private insurance.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Tanksley. So I'm going to call it, we need a part 2 of this. Now that y'all know who these folk are, there's a wealth of information. We're going to have to really dig into some of these things that we're going to skim over today. We're going to have to come back and continue this conversation. We got 25 minutes, so we can still make some things happen. And I don't want to monopolize the questions either. So we got people here that I know have questions. We're going to make sure we open the floor so people speak. That was the whole point of having everybody in the room at once. But I'm going to ask one last set of questions. I'm going to ask all 3 of them at once, and then y'all can respond to any of them. And then after that round, then we'll open the floor for questions from the community. So question number 1, how do you suggest those of us that are trying to eat healthy and live a healthy lifestyle do it within a limited budget? What are some places to go, things to do, ways to not give all of our money to Whole Foods, and still do this in a way that has fidelity and integrity and has the best outcomes for us? Question 1. Question 2, I want specific like mental health strategies. What are the tips that we can do? Things that you have coached some of your clients or some of your community family members in, just to help us give us daily reminders or make this a lifestyle. I hear that you got to want it and there's the change motivation part, but I don't know that I want to wait for everybody to want it bad enough. What are some environmental things, some practical things that we can do, whether we want it or not, where we can begin these sort of rituals to transition our lifestyle? 3, how do we get our children to do it? What are some things that y'all have learned in your families that can help? And then 4, this is it. And then 4, what are some things that y'all have done to deal with the family transition, push back against your parents, still going to the Thanksgivings, but not being the weirdo in the corner with your own pot? How do you still practice cultural, like, Black life while still having your own individual sort of process? You don't all have to answer all 4 of those questions, but if you could speak to some of that or pick one that you really want to, go around one more. We can go in order of how we started, Sadiq, Dr. Matthews, Zaraki, and Dr. Tanksley. And then after that, y'all can start putting questions in the chat, or you can just, unmic yourself and speak directly, raise your hand if y'all want. But we got, 20 minutes, so try to get through as much info as possible in the next 20 minutes with the anticipation that we will be bringing y'all back again in March. Okay, go.
Okay. Doc, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I got you. Yeah.
Yes.
Say a full sentence. It was a sentence, like you would get choppy in the middle of it. So I'll stop you if it gets choppy.
How can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So I actually missed question number 3, but I'm gonna go real quick and be real unconventional. All right. So how do I do it in the constraints of my budget? So we actually do this. Like, again, part of our philosophy is start where you are. I literally help people walk through wherever you are shopping. That could be Safeway, it could be Jewel, it could be Mariano's, doesn't need to be Whole Foods, it could be Walmart, right? And walk through how to upgrade in terms of the types of food you are using, not necessarily upgrade in price, but upgrade the types of food you are using based on what you're already doing. Because I think a big part of it is like you brought to light is, how do I change my pattern? And then it's just like Dr. Tanksley just said, is it sustainable, right? So if we go in and show you how to shop where you're already shopping, it's just opening your eyes to what's already there. Kind of like I didn't know Soul Veg was on 75th Street, but I could get to 75th Street. So if I needed to go back, it was an option. So I'll just start there, right? There are more options where you are, even if you're in a quote unquote food desert, right? And then the other thing I'll say real quick, but it may sound controversial, is a banana is going to cost less than a steak all the time. So all of the noise about how much money it costs to eat plant-based is noise, right? An apple is always going to be less than shrimp. It's really your preference. So you miss me with the it costs more, right? So I'm gonna keep moving. Mental health strategies. I'm gonna be real basic, right? I think sometimes you got to use the peanut butter jelly method, meaning we always talk about change your circle, right? If you are desire to be a rapper or an artist or something, then you join some circles where there are other people who do that type of thing, right? Whether it be a poetry circle, whether it be a cipher, whether it be whatever, right? So for brothers and sisters, hey, you having a problem with this plant-based thing? Then start dating somebody that's plant-based, because a woman can get a man to do something and a man can get a woman to do something. So I'm being real basic, maybe controversial, right? Change the organizations that you're in, right? Like, look for some other organizations and groups. We're real big on that. Everybody's living off their phone. So it doesn't hurt you to tap into a plant-based group on Facebook, even though you may not be plant-based. Just look at what they're doing, listen to what they're saying. You don't have to comment. You can like sit in the background and just absorb some information, right? So dating, organizations, and groups are real basic ways. They're things you're going to do anyway, right? Okay, I missed question number 3 because I was concentrating on some other things, but I'll skip to number 4, right? Um, family events. Make your own food and take it with you, because that way you can share. And if you are a good cook, and here's what I learned over the years, they're gonna eat it anyway. So they might be like, what's that? Oh, it's spaghetti, it's meatless, gone. What's that? It's mac and cheese, just try it. And then I'll say this last. Sometimes you just don't lead in with it's vegetarian or it's vegan, it's food. And this was the Whole Foods experience. Let me tell you what they found out. Whole Foods had chocolate chip cookies that they used to label vegan chocolate chip cookies when they debuted them. And they would put them in the front of the store. And the cookies stayed in the front of the store. Well, Whole Foods did not change the ingredients on the cookies. They went back in the lab and all they did was take vegan off of the label, and they cannot keep their chocolate chip cookies in the store. So moral of the story is your taste buds ain't all of that great anyway. You're not really telling the difference, right? It's just the word that's scaring you. It's a marketing thing, which is why Burger King doesn't say vegan burger, right? They say whatever Whopper, right? They don't even use the word plant-based. They call it the Impossible Whopper after the name, right? And you got people eating it up and down 79th Street. Like, man, this is good, G. So the point is, a lot of times it's mental. A lot of times it's starting where you are and recognizing the circles that you're in can get you started. I'm cool.
I love it. Brother Sadiq, I mean, you said it all. Quick story. When I started on my journey 11 years ago, my first Thanksgiving, my mother was like throwing my food off of her table, right? I had my superfood powder, my juice, and she like took my superfood and threw it off her table. So I didn't do well that Thanksgiving, but eventually I was able to have the conversations explaining where I was in my life. But more importantly, and I think this is important for our kids, is you have to model. You can't just preach it. You can't preach it. You have to live it. You have to be authentic. And as I told my story, being older, obviously now living in the house with my mom, she thought this was like a trendy thing I was doing. And in some cases, our people think that, oh, okay, well, I don't eat meat, so I'm superior, or I'm vegan, or I'm superior. And that's not what I wanted to present. But if they don't know your story, then that compassion is not really there. So eventually my mom came around, and she's like a big advocate. She juices. She's big on juicing. Sadaki was talking about juice. Hopefully that you ship to Atlanta, because I'd love to take advantage of that. But modeling is key. You can't tell your kids, hey, you got to eat your fruits and vegetables, and you're not eating fruits and vegetables. You have to drink water. My grandbabies, they grew up with watching me drink water and me giving them water. And so when they go places, they're like, oh no, we don't drink water out of the sink. Now they don't understand it, but they learned it because I taught them that as young kids. So it's important for the adult of the household to watch some Netflix documentaries, engulf yourself, change your brain, get the meaning behind the change. Teach our history. We teach our history to our kids, but when I was over in Ghana, I couldn't find junk food. They're not eating like that over there. That's not what our people came up on. So being able to explain why these foods that are so loved are not the best for us to eat at this time. But more importantly, if we just bring our children off of the process, I know it's convenient. I understand that. But 20, 50 years ago, our grandparents, great grandparents, they weren't eating processed foods. They were eating animals occasionally. It wasn't all the time. You ask the question, well, do you have to go to extreme? Do you have to go vegan? What I like to say is, if you want to heal your body, I believe that you do have to go vegan. If you don't want to heal, then you can learn how some of the things I teach, how to eat according to your blood type. There's that between. But if you're sick and tired and you begin to understand it's based on what you're putting in your mind, what you're putting in your body, what you're putting in your spirit, and you don't want to change anything, then you don't want to get well, then really we shouldn't even be having this conversation. So it's up to the individual. There is no perfect plan that's going to fit for everybody. Everybody has a different blood type. Everybody has a different blueprint. As far as the strategies, holistic detox strategies, I'm big on meditation and breathing. You have to change your brain. You have to change the brain in order to ensure a permanent lifestyle change. Like Dr. Tanksley said, is it sustainable? Because if you are doing something just to fit into a dress or for vacation, when you reach that goal, or you're going to go back to your old eating habits. So you have to go into your why. You have to identify your triggers. All that can be identified by holistically detoxing, which literally means making a decision to withdraw watching the news all the time. That's trauma. I don't know how people watch the news. That's traumatic. Turn the TV off. Turn the radio off. And your environment, have positive things in your environment that's going to feed you, feed your spirit, feed your mind, the things that will help fuel your visions and your dreams. Sitting in social media, I'm guilty. I get caught up in some of the videos sometimes too, but that can't be the main part of your day. And then you're wondering why you're craving. There are emotional addictive factors that are tied to snack foods that Dr. Africa taught us. If we're feeling a certain way. So we have to learn how to manage emotions and stress, and holistic detoxing is just the big thing. Fasting, Dr. Tanksley talks about, fasting, the same concept, but you got to withdraw in order to be able to really tap into who you are. And I talk about the soul because once you learn how to live from your soul, then you're then guided into truth. Like the universe will bring to you what you need if you desire to be well, if you desire to be healthy. It's mind, body, spirit connection. And I think that's it. That's it for me. The root cause is important. Getting to the root cause. I agree with Brother Sadiq. When I hear that, oh, it's expensive to eat healthy. No, when you holistically detox, when you fast, you learn that we're eating too much anyway. We don't need that much food. Like, we really don't. So then when you are putting nutrient dense foods in your body, you don't crave because your cells are getting what it needs in order to carry out whatever the activities are for that day. We talk about starving, but in some cases, it's just being hungry. You're hungry. It's okay to be hungry. You're not starving. Hunger and starvation is not the same thing. Our bodies needs to go into ketosis for some periods of time in order to be able to use the fuel that's in our digestive system, in our fat cells, that's stored, that we could utilize for energy instead of putting more, but they say putting more gas in a car that you only driving 5 miles, a week, and you continue to put gas in the car. So we need to get hungry sometimes. It's okay to be hungry. So I think I hit on everything, but thank you.
Love it. Our time is tight. My bad. There's so much to talk about. Zaraki, you see Benny Lee's question about prison. I think you've done some stuff around that.
Well, first of all, love and respect to Brother Benny Lee. He's been a pillar in the community for a very long time doing the work. Y'all can hear me, right? Yeah. Certainly, to answer his question real quick, and I'll come back. I think it's when I first got into developing the peace diet, understanding how diet was related to violence. That's really where it started, and then the aspect of violence grew to the more traumatic, all of that. But I see all this wealth of research, and I realized I didn't create this stuff out of thin air. And however smart I might think I am, there's been other smart people before me, and they've collected all this data, so they know exactly how diet affects us. They know overconsumption of meat and fatty acids of that nature, particularly arachidonic acid, damages those parts of the brain that are related to impulse control and aggression. They know all of that. Lead, they know all of that. And so it's no surprise that the same company, Aramark, for example, that supplies food for the prisons also is the major partner with CPS, Chicago Public School System. So yeah, no doubt there's a direct connection, and they know that connection. I think they're using those powers to be using those connections to dull our powers. You know what I mean? So yeah. What was the other question? No, I'm not going to handle Brother Sadiq. Certainly his expertise with the plant-based African and Dr. Matthews. Certainly in regards to how to keep the diet on a budget. Dr. Sadiq knows that working at Soul Veg for all those years, I had to learn how to be vegan on a budget. So, you know, it's by default, right? But it did help, you know, working at Soul Veg. But in regards to the mental strategies, I think Dr. Matthews really hit on it in regards to the holistic detox. And it kind of brings me back to the whole ACEs conversation to understand that if we understand how much food is an extension of our emotional state or our psychological state, you know what I mean? And understand how trauma affects our behaviors to the point it's addictive behavior like anything else. I mean, food can be immensely addictive, but it again becomes from your body's and your brain's attempt to protect us, you know, from threats that are real or imagined, or particularly in the present sense, exaggerated. So, you know, toxic shame in particular, it really seizes power of what they call the autonomic nervous system, and it becomes habitual. Like Dr. Matthews talked about those triggers. So when you're feeling particularly sad, that's why they even talk about how chocolate and all those types of things, they make whole white people TV shows, movies about it, you know, like, you know, you get a whole tub of ice cream or whatever, but it's because there's a trigger, there's a like a straight up reflexive, like breathing trigger that says, I'm sad, my brain needs this thing to bring it back into some sort of level of stasis. You know what I mean? Just like the dopamine need that hit. Sometimes we look for those things. The brain don't know the difference between cocaine and chocolate necessarily. But in that regard, so I think in regards to mental strategies for eating better, it should be a part of our mental health practice. You know, I think certainly all people of color understanding our historical wounds and the impact of transgenerational trauma on our very DNA structure, right, should really be about protecting our mental health. And I know that's a difficult conversation, although it seems like it's becoming more and more of a conversation now, which is great. But I think what's often separated from that conversation is the biosocial aspect of psychological health. You know, that food has a lot to do with your mental health. But the trick is, and that's kind of the chicken and the egg, right? That was contrary to a vegan conversation, but I'm gonna go with it. The chicken and the egg, right? Is that, yeah, like you said, there's plenty of information out there, but if you don't feel good about yourself, then you're not gonna do the things that are gonna encourage good outcomes because you won't feel worthy of that. But that's what toxic shame is. And toxic shame in particular is indicative of those who are afflicted by transgenerational trauma or that kind of stress. So it's the reason why our communities eat the way we do. That has a lot more to do with just food access. You can have a Whole Foods directly across the street. I will go a mile down in the snow to get to Harold's because that's what I think I'm worth. You know what I mean? Because that's how that works. So how do we work beyond those levels of self-sabotage, which is really what it is? You know, and I'm not even on the whole, of course, I've been vegan for 24 years and I think I'm a hardcore acolyte of it. But it's just really a matter of, do you care enough about yourself in any regard? You know, I know people, when I work in the schools that don't drink no water unless it got Xan in it. I'm talking about Xanax. Y'all don't know that's a thing in high school? It is. But I'm like, so Joe, you just wake up, you don't put no water in your body? Like, that means you don't care about you. That's just an unhealthy decision. So what's going on with your emotional state? What's happening? Who hurt you, Holmes? You know what I mean? We can get into that conversation, and then it grows to a point of, oh, then I'm gonna have to. I care enough about myself to get up and go to the gym or drink this water when I wake up in the morning or eat more fruits and vegetables. But if you don't care about yourself, you're gonna do things that reflect that. And like Dr. Matthews said, you step into those mind-body practices because it does require more than just, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? Because it's not no, fancy TV shows. Affirmation is fine, but I think the point of an affirmation is to affirm something you're already in the process of doing, right? That's what your affirm means. But how can you put practices in like deep breathing and things of that nature that really start to train the body to want better for itself, and to start to work past some of those barriers that have been placed there before you had really a time to process what your worth was, these kind of childhood stresses and what have you. In regards to, children, well, I think making it regular. Like, my son was raised vegan his whole life. And it wasn't like you're going to eat this because I say so. It's like you're going to eat that because that's what we eat. This is what we do. And then when he became old enough to understand it, I explained, this is why we do that. Because I know you're going to go with your friends and they're going to do this, that, and the other, and they're going to get at you. They're going to join on you, right? I'm sorry, I work with kids so much, the language kind of goes in and out, so don't worry about it. but like, so I was like, how can you stand on your own knowing now you're the goofy? Why you eating their stuff, man? What's wrong with you? And so, but it got to the point, he's 17 now, going to be 18 in a couple of weeks. And my students always ask me, like, oh, you make your son eat vegetables. Like, so what your mama feeding you at home? What's she making you eat? Like, he's 17, he gonna do what he want. I ain't standing over the child no more. He can go do whatever he want. I hope that I've given him enough and he's seen enough to make proper choices. Now, I imagine he's gonna make some bad choices along the way. But I think part of all of our development is that we come back around to what we know is best for us. And again, it comes back to me always trying to affirm him that you deserve the best. And so if anything, you deserve the best from yourself. And I think we've established that
Mm-hmm.
eating like this is the best. You know what I mean? In regards to the COVID piece, what's up?
Okay, do that real quick. I want to give Dr. Tanksley at least a minute. Right at the time.
You know what? No, I'm good. I've said enough. I want to turn it over to the doctor.
Type it into the closing question. I want to hear that, actually.
I have to say it again? Want me to do the COVID thing? Oh, I just said it real quick. In the chat, I got you. Which one? It's too late.
Go ahead, answer it in the chat.
How about this? Since we've done like the whole Key and Peele skit, we'll just turn it over to Dr. Tanksley to take up the rest. I prefer to hear it from a doctor anyway. She earned those credentials, right?
Yeah.
Definitely did, but I want to connect with you because I think we have a lot of overlap. So I really want to connect with you. That being said, I'm going to do this in a minute. I promise I'm going to try to. You hit on a couple things, Z, that I think is really important for part two. Many of you have probably read Joy. I'm always mess up people's names, but the post-traumatic slave syndrome book, Joy DeGroy, I don't know how she says it, but she has a really, really important concept in there where she talks about self-esteem. And that really made me think about that when you were talking about the value, because, self-esteem essentially is how I value myself, but all the measurements that we do of it are really about like what confidence I have or those kind of things. It's not really about my esteem or my value, because as you mentioned, if I valued myself, I know how to spell it. I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry. Thank you, Nubia. If you value yourself, you are going to make better choices. So I'm going to hit what I can in the 30 seconds that we got. Okay. So first question, budget, healthy. I think they did a great job answering that already. I will say, at least in regards to access to food, many of your clinics. So I'm also the regional medical director of Access Community Health Network South Region. So like all of our clinics, 35 health centers across the Chicagoland area, and my 6 that are on the South side, every single one of them can give you a resource. They can give you a food prescription. So because we have a partnership with the Chicago Food Depository, and many federally qualified health centers and other clinics, community clinics, have those type of relationships. So, at least getting access to fresh fruits and vegetables actually for free is something that you can get from resources like that as well too. And so that can help supplement. I tell my patients, this is not all you're gonna need to eat for the month, but it will supplement you and you can go twice a month. So that's one thing I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna leave the rest of that because Brother Sadiq already handled that perfectly. Mental health strategies, I think Tammy handled that perfectly as well too. I'm just gonna throw one other thing in there because I'm gonna wrap this actually in a little bit with the COVID question. What are some things that we can be doing for COVID that can really, like supplements and yada, yada, yada. First and foremost, before you supplement anything, take care of your body. There are so many studies that show us that if you are not getting enough sleep, then you are just setting yourself up for failure. Most of the studies, there's actually a really, really good study that showed if you are persistently getting less than 5 hours of sleep per night, you're sleep deprived, first of all. But you also are setting yourself up that if you get exposed to something as simple as the common cold, which is not COVID, the common cold, you're at a 350% more increased risk of getting that cold. And please forgive the noise you hear in the background. My dogs are doing something. So 350% more chance that if I'm sleep deprived, I get a cold. That means that sleep is ultimately one of the best things that you can do for your body. And restorative sleep, not just I laid down, I went to bed, the TV was on, I was listening to YouTube. Like, no, restorative sleep, like Dr. Matthews said, cut those things off. I have a timer on my phone. I have one of those alarms. It goes off, my phone goes to sleep. I get it in the morning, right? And that's the level that we need to get to, is I care about myself enough that I need these 8 hours because my brain is restoring at this time. My body is rejuvenating at this time and I need it. So one other thing I will say, just in that same line along sleep and COVID, melatonin. So if somebody's having a difficult time with sleep, one of the most natural supplements that you can take is a melatonin supplement. And melatonin is actually, it's actually a substance that our pineal gland makes and helps with our circadian rhythm or our sleep-wake cycle, but also showed in some studies, not against COVID-19, but against some of the older strains of coronavirus, that melatonin was actually helpful at decreasing the ability of that virus to connect and to attack. So melatonin, does it work for COVID? Don't know, because there are no studies that show that, but it did show some studies that were beneficial in coronavirus, and it helps sleep, and sleep helps you not to get infected. So you get it. Okay. Other things about COVID, Dr. Matthews mentioned the deep breathing. Absolutely important. I always teach my patients the 4-7-8 breath. I do that just because, as Z was saying, it switches your body, your mind from a sympathetic drive of, oh my God, I just saw a bear, to a parasympathetic drive of, I'm calm, I'm relaxed, I can handle this, right? And that's where we need to live, in that more often in that parasympathetic drive, so that when we do see a bear or we are getting carjacked, we do have that response, right? As opposed to being always at that response, that high level of response, kind of deadening out that system, because you otherwise wouldn't be able to respond to it, because you're already living way up there, right? So how can you go higher? In that same light with that breathing, when we think about COVID, many studies have shown that, one of the things that we're definitely seeing are the complications of COVID. And you realize COVID, of course, even though it can affect many, many organs in the body, it's ultimately a respiratory infection to start off with. And so when you have a respiratory infection, especially at the levels of inflammation that we're seeing with COVID, a lot of people down the line have had complications or have had pulmonary fibrosis, which is a thickening of the respiratory lining. It's essentially inflammation that's causing a barrier between your oxygen and your carbon dioxide to be able to exchange gases, and for you to be able to actually have a good respiratory elimination of what you need to. And so when you aren't getting rid of your CO2, your blood becomes acid, right? And so those things also then increase inflammation. So it's a whole, it's a whole system. So deep breathing can actually increase the lung capacity so that you can decrease that stickiness or that stiffness, and actually be able to have better lung compliance. That's why when, older diseases like things like cystic fibrosis, which is we don't get that very often, but it's something that a lot of white people get because it's a genetic thing, but basically it's a lung disease. Their lungs don't make surfactant, which is the fluid that your lungs need in order to expand and do what they need to do. So they don't make it very well. And so they get thick mucus plugs stuck in their chest, almost like somebody who had a really bad respiratory infection. They do percussion, right? You hit them on the back real hard, try to help them expectorate those things. Well, there's something you can do. There's a practice called Qigong, which is a type of traditional Chinese medicine. It's actually a mind-body meditative movement, similar. Most of us have heard of like Tai Chi and yoga and all of that. Well, Qigong fits in that category as well too. It's a meditative movement. It actually helps with deep breathing, and something that you can do is tapping. And there's the apical lung fields is something that you would tap in Qigong procedures that actually helps to bring that up as well too. So there's some things that you can kind of do in those regards. And there's YouTube videos on Pullman on the lung tapping in Qigong. I can put it in the chat or somebody else can. It's QIGONG. Other than that, because I lied, I went 6 minutes over what I said. Other supplements, just to throw you guys some supplements. I believe that a healthy, colorful diet is more nutritious and better for your body than any supplement that you can take. That being said, if you like, well, I know I'm going to eat Baba, then I'm a supplement. Recognize you're not creating a milieu for your body to be healthy and for those supplements to be at their best. But if that's something that you're looking to do, there have been, and I'm sure you guys have seen this in the news, tons of studies or tons of information coming out about vitamin D. Vitamin D, it's not that it makes COVID better, or it's not a treatment, none of that. Essentially what they saw were individuals who had severe respiratory infections, like that ended up on ventilators and hospitalized and things like that. Those people, the ones who had lower vitamin D levels did worse, right, than the people who had normal vitamin D levels. I think that speaks a little further upstream than just my vitamin D level. That speaks to how much do I go outside and get into nature, because I get my vitamin D from the sun. So that speaks also to what is my overall nutrition even before COVID came, because 9 times out of 10, if my vitamin D level wasn't elevated, I probably either didn't go to the doctor, didn't have it checked. I don't spend much time outside because that's really where I'm getting it from, or I'm not really engaging in other overall health, activities as well too. So I think we should look at that as opposed to just take vitamin D. But you can take vitamin D, 5,000 units a day, international units. I use is what I forget what word I'm trying to say, the measurement of that is. So 5,000 IU a day is totally safe. If you go visit your doctor and they check your vitamin D level and you're deficient already, you need to supplement up before you start saying like, okay, I'm just, so 50,000 units a week is usually what we give in that setting. Vitamin C. Oh, and the other thing about vitamin D, it's just good for respiratory infections anyway, right? So it helps with the common cold. It helps with your immune system being boosted anyway. So you should do that, COVID or not. Vitamin C, if you do have, that's something that is definitely known for immunity. Again, I say try to get it out your diet. Eat some oranges if you can, some tangerines, some mangoes, some pineapples, some things that's got vitamin C in it. Otherwise, if you need to take a supplement, 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C is a pretty good dose to take in a cold season. Zinc is another thing that is amazing to take and helpful just overall for immunity. One thing, this may be a little bit controversial, but I do recommend this to my patients all the time, magnesium. So most of the soil that, as Z was talking about, our food is mass produced. Our biggest enemy out here is the Department of Ag. Like, so let's be real. Most of the way that they mass produce and grow our vegetables that we even get from the grocery store doesn't have a lot of nutrition even in the soil. And so a lot of that stuff is already magnesium poor. Like, it's not at the levels of magnesium that you would expect it to have anyway. So magnesium is something that I usually recommend for supplement, or at least every other day, or something definitely I would say check with your doctors and stuff like that, because if you've got cardiac disease and other things, this may not be the recommendation for you. So check with your doctors, but that's another one that I usually throw in there. A lot of folks like elderberry. Black people like elderberry, and that's cool because elderberry is really good for boosting your immune system. One thing I always say, at least, and this may be theoretical, I can't say, but at least in the studies, remember, everything I try to do it based off evidence. In studies, it does, we usually recommend that if you actually have an infection, like you now have COVID, stop taking the elderberry actually, because elderberry is a great immune booster. But if you're already inflamed and you have an immune response going on, it has, in some studies, has shown that it has worsened that immune response. And so you don't want to end up, if you can, there's so many other things you can be doing. You can be sleeping, you can be eating all these, taking all these other supplements and doing that. Take your elderberry preventatively. You get an infection, pull back off the elderberry during that time and just continue to use other things. If you actually do have an infection, though, some other things that you could take, green tea. And I usually recommend to people who tell me they like tea, I'm like, well, drink green tea, because green tea has ECGC in it, and it's like amazing antioxidant and anti-inflammatory and all of those kind of things. So that's something that I have given to anybody I know that has had COVID. I've given them a basket with green tea and honey in it, because it's just important to drink. I think I'm gonna leave it there and say the rest for part 2, Dr. Cartman.
I love it. Don't you love it when you got people that just trying to give you all the information that they have? Like, I love that. You know what I mean? These folks ain't trying to be like, no, I'm gonna give you a little bit, then you pay for the rest. They're dying to, gotta cut them off. Which means we got to bring you back. I really appreciate y'all tonight. I ain't going to do no long, dramatic close. I just love it. I love y'all. Thank y'all for y'all time tonight. We clearly need this, so we're going to try to find a way to continue this conversation. Thank y'all for tonight. Stay healthy, get some sleep, drink some water, and we'll see y'all next time.
Half your body weight in water.
Thank you for joining us. Please visit
Thank you so much.
BlueDoorCenterIL.com.
Thank
We
you
will
so much
be
for having me.
observing Nutrition Month in March. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good evening.
Thank you.
Oh, Dr. Taxley, is she gone? She gone. All right, now.
I'll connect y'all. I got you.
All right, cool. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
But now.
Y'all on Instagram?
I think
No,
most
just
people do
Facebook.
Instagram.
Thank
you
you,
talking
Dr.
about
Cartman.
Oh,
Of course. Thank
Thank
y'all.
you, Aquia. That's so
you're
pretty.
welcome. Thank you. This was
I appreciate.
all right, Doc. We got to get ready and plan part 2.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got
I'll
to.
be here. I'll be here.
Okay.
Oh, y'all.
Awesome.
This was
All
so
right.
fun. I really
Thank you.
Take care, you all.
Y'all have a good one. Peace.
All right. Peace.
Appreciate you, John. Dr. Nasif? What kind of doctor are you? What you do? I can't hear you. Unmute yourself.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. I'm a naturopath.
Oh, really? Okay. Where you based out of?
Chicago.
You here? Okay.
I'm a real good friend. Dr. Matthew, Brother Zakia. I graduated from the health service out of Lombard.
Oh, good shit.
So
You got how contact? You on Instagram or something? You got Facebook or you got how food you?
yeah, I'm on Facebook, Instagram.
What's your IG?
Look on Facebook. As Asik.
I can't hear you that good. Type your IG and Facebook in the chat for me.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me try to
Oh, wait,
find
no,
it.
I hear you now. Do the IG.
IG is Real Exclusive. REAL XCLUSIVE.
3 R's?
No, just 1 R. REAL.
No, it says 3 R's in one of these other names. REALEXCLUSIVE.
No. REAL XCLUSIVE.
Yeah. Hip hop exclusive. XCSI. I don't see that either.
You don't see Real Exclusive? Hold on, let me what's your IG? I'll find you.
O Cartman 1.
Hold on, give me 1 sec. Okay. OCART.
Yeah, MAN.
Okay, I just followed you.
All right, cool. Appreciate it, bro.
No problem. Appreciate y'all. I'm glad y'all had this. It was real good. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for being here, bro.
All right, I look forward to the next one.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
right. Can you send me Dr. Tinsley's information? She was talking and I chatted her, but and I stayed on because I had chatted some people, so I needed to get their info from my messages. But you can
What
send
you
me
want?
that.
Email, number, IG? She got all that. Facebook? What you want?
I need her email because essentially she said everything that I would say, but
Mm-hmm.
being a yoga instructor, I have to write an article, so I can't write it from an editorial perspective. So since she's credentialed and she says what I need to be said, then I'm gonna source her. But I would rather interview her. Yeah.
You see it?
Yep. But what
And
is her
Akia, you
social
want,
stuff? Just so I can find it. What is it?
What you need, Doc?
I was gonna ask you what you needed for Dr. Tinsley, her IG.
If we could get.
Oh, thank you.
And
Okay.
you wanted Dorothea's? What do you want his email and number?
Email and number, yes.
And I guess if you work with them, what's the best way to reach them since you got them to speak? How is the most responsive?
I don't know. Email's probably fine.
Okay.
Doc. Okay. All right.
Let me find the number.
I'm making sure I save your chat.
Definitely let me know if you do something for children and parents.
Yeah,
Because I
that's a
literally,
whole conversation by itself.
yeah. I mean, it's good. It's good. It's still applicable. Z said it best. You have to model the behavior, but this was so good, and this is why I wanted to tune in. But in the opposite way, it's like how does your mental health impact your nutrition? Z spoke to that too, like it's connected to your work. I mean, this was phenomenal because it is a free process, but we'll talk. I'm not going to hold y'all up.
We should do a whole thing about getting children healthy, and you could be on there to talk about how you get your kids to do yoga.
Yeah, but it's because I do yoga, like I'm out of it. And I think, honestly, you already know my philosophy is not everybody has to be a yogi. Everybody has to know their worth and be healthy and get active. Your children do whatever they see you do.
Let me call you. We hold you to the
Oh, sorry. I stoned out. I'm sorry. Bye. Nice to meet you.
Good night, y'all. Thank you, Dr. Cartman.
Thank y'all.
All right, take care.
Okay, bye.